A sliver of bird bone, no longer than a finger, with a single hole drilled through one end. Watch it push through frozen hide, drawing a thread of twisted sinew tight behind it. In, pull, out, in again. The single most important tool of the entire Ice Age fits neatly into the palm of one hand, not the spear, not the axe, a needle, because a spear only kills your dinner. But this small thing is the difference between a child living through the night and a child freezing to death in it. And tonight, on the edge of a world made of cold, the freeze is coming early, and there is a newborn who is not yet clothed. The Ice Age does not care about you. It does not bargain, and it does not slow down. The world and as people live in is a plain of frozen grass and blowing snow, a place where the wind alone can kill an exposed body in a single afternoon. There are no warm forests to shelter in here, no gentle coast to retreat to. There is only cold and more cold and the great shaggy animals that have learned to endure it. Anna is a seamstress. And in a world like this one, that is not a small or a soft occupation. It is life and death for the entire band. The hunters bring in the meat, yes, and they are honored for it. But Anna makes the thing that lets those hunters walk out into the killing wind in the first place and come home again alive. She makes the coats. Without her work, there is no hunt. There is no crossing the open plain. There is no surviving the dark half of the year at all. In a band like this, the seamstress is as vital as any hunter, and everyone knows it. The skill in her hands is not decoration or comfort. It is the thin wall standing between her people and a cold that is always patiently waiting to get in. And this particular season, there is a newborn in the band. A newborn cannot make and hold its own heat the way a grown body can. Its small body loses warmth far faster than it can produce it. Left uncovered in this cold, even for a night, it will simply not last until morning. The child needs a garment of its very own, small, close-fitting, sewn tight enough to trap every last scrap of the warmth its little body makes. And that garment is Anna's to make, but the garment is not finished. That is the whole terror of this night, and the freeze is coming faster and harder than it should, weeks before its proper time. Anna can feel it arriving the way you feel the temperature drop in a room when a door opens onto winter. The light is going early. The wind is finding a new edge. The cold does not wait for a seamstress to finish her work, and the newborn cannot wait for the cold. So she threads the fragile needle, and she bends closer to the hide, and she begins to race a freeze she cannot see but can already feel in her hands. Stop for a moment and see this for what it truly is, because we have grown so used to it that we have forgotten how strange it is. No animal on earth wears another animal, not one. The reindeer is born into its own fur and dies in that same fur and no other. The mammoth has its own hide and never any other. Every single creature on the planet is born into one skin and lives in it and dies in it, except us, only us. Human beings do the one thing that no other animal has ever done. We take the bodies of other animals and we put them on. We steal warmth we were never born with and wrap ourselves in it. That single strange trick is a huge part of how a fragile tropical ape managed to survive and thrive in the very coldest places on the entire planet. Without it, we stay near the equator forever. With it, we walk into the ice. Think about how radical that really is. Fur, feathers, blubber, scales, every other animal's defense against the cold is grown from its own body, fixed and permanent, the same in every season. Ours is borrowed and removable and remade at will. We are the only creature that can change our skin to match the world and put on the armor of the mammoth without ever growing it. That single freedom is what let one fragile species spread across every climate on Earth, and making a coat is not a simple thing. It is a genuine technology with steps that must be learned and done in order. First, the hide must be scraped clean of every scrap of fat and flesh, or it will rot or stiffen into a useless board. Then it must be worked soft, rubbed, stretched, pounded, sometimes smoked over a slow fire, until a rigid sheet of dead skin becomes something supple enough to bend around a living shoulder. And then comes the part that is pure mind, the part no animal could ever do. You cannot simply drape a hide over your back and hope to survive. To truly hold in heat, a garment has to fit. It has to follow the body to close snug at the wrist and the throat, leaving no open gap for the wind to reach in and steal the warmth away. That means cutting the flat hide into shaped pieces and joining those pieces so they wrap around a body that has 3 dimensions. It means pattern, it means planning, it means seeing the finished shape whole in your mind before a single stitch exists. A coat is not just warmth. A coat is a shape held inside a human mind and then built patiently by human hands. Now look again at the needle, because in the end, everything depends on it. The oldest eyed needle human beings have ever found came from a cave in Siberia, Denisova Cave, and it is around 50,000 years old. 7 centimeters of bird bone, its surface rubbed smooth and polished, its eye drilled cleanly and precisely through one end. That eye, that tiny hole, is the whole quiet revolution. Before the eyed needle, you could punch holes in a hide with a pointed awl and lace 2 pieces loosely together, but you could not sew a tight, fine, fitted seam. The eye changes everything. It lets you carry the thread through the hide with the point itself, stitch after even stitch, and pull a seam so snug and so continuous that the wind can find no way through it. A garment sewn this way does not just cover the body, it seals it. And the needle is not the only clue that these people were master tailors. Far to the south, in a cave in Africa, there is a bone tool even older, a needle-like point from Sibudu, more than 60,000 years old, worn in exactly the way a tool for pulling thread through hide would wear. The urge to sew, to fit, to seal a body against the world, runs deep and wide across our species, on more than one continent, older than we ever guessed. But make one of these needles yourself, and you understand the terror that comes with it. A needle this thin, carved from bird bone, its eye drilled with nothing but a sharp stone point, takes hours upon hours of delicate, patient work to make, and it can snap in a single careless instant. One push too hard through hide that has gone too cold and too stiff, and the fragile shaft cracks in two. This is the one truly irreplaceable object in the whole of Anna's world tonight. There is no spare tucked away in a pouch. If it breaks now, with the freeze arriving early and the garment still unfinished, she cannot simply carve another one in time. Hours of work, and the newborn does not have hours. And the hide itself is stiffening with every minute that the temperature falls, growing harder and more brittle to pierce. So she warms it by the fire before each stitch, and she works the needle in slowly, feeling for the softest give in the skin, her entire being narrowed down to that one fragile sliver of bone. A baby's whole life and a splinter of bird bone balanced against each other in the dark. The freeze comes early, exactly as she feared it would. The wind turns from a cold thing into a blade. Frost climbs the stone walls of the shelter and creeps across the ground. The band pulls in tight around the fire, bodies pressed close for warmth, and the newborn cries, a thin high sound almost lost beneath the roar of the storm. Anna does not rush, and this is the hardest discipline of all. Rushing snaps the needle, and a snapped needle means a dead child, so she keeps her rhythm. She warms the hide by the flames, then sets a single stitch, then warms it again, then sets the next. The seam closes a hand's width at a time, no faster, however loud the wind grows or however thin the crying gets, sleeve to body, hood to collar. Every gap sealed against the cold, one careful pass of bone and sinew at a time. The storm presses down on the shelter, the fire gutters low and bends and somehow holds. And then, deep in the coldest heart of the night, the last stitch pulls tight and Anna bites through the sinew to finish it. The garment is whole, it is closed, it is done. She lifts the newborn and wraps it. Small arms guided into small sleeves, the hood drawn gently closed around the tiny face until only the eyes and the flushed cheeks show. The wind can howl all it wants now, it cannot get in. The child stops crying, it settles. It holds its own heat at last, because a woman with a splinter of bone and a thread of sinew drew 1,000 tiny, patient stitches against the dark and won. When at last the storm breaks and the gray dawn comes, the band gathers itself and moves, out across a frozen plain that no naked animal could ever hope to cross alive. Every one of them wearing the bodies of other animals, cut and shaped and sewn to fit, sealed tight against the wind. They carry their warmth with them now, out into a world that would otherwise kill them within a day, and they walk into it, and they live. And the newborn goes with them, wrapped and breathing, a life that the cold had reached for and missed. No monument will ever be raised to the woman who sat up through the storm, setting one careful stitch at a time. But that child will grow and have children of its own, and somewhere down the long line of all those winters is a person reading these words. The seamstress saved more than one night. She saved a thread that never broke. Here is where this cold story deepens into something far stranger than mere survival, because we did not stop at simply staying alive. We took the very thing that kept us alive, the sewn garment, and we began, almost immediately, to make it beautiful. Follow the thread forward in time to a place called Sungir on the cold plains of what is now Russia, around 34,000 years ago. There, 2 children were buried side by side, and what those children were wearing when they went into the ground stops the breath in your throat. Their garments were sewn with more than 13,000 beads, every single one of them carved by hand from mammoth ivory. Do the arithmetic and it becomes almost unbearable to hold in your mind. Each bead had to be cut, ground into shape, and drilled through by hand, perhaps 45 minutes of skilled work for just one of them. 13,000 beads, that is well over 10,000 hours of labor. Sewn one at a time onto clothing for 2 children. 10,000 hours for a burial. Sit with that number because it means something enormous. 10,000 hours of warmth would have kept the whole band alive through many winters, but a plain, unbeaded hide keeps a body exactly as warm as a beaded one does. The beads add no heat whatsoever, so this was never about warmth. This was something else entirely: grief and love and status and the deep human need to make the covering of a cherished body beautiful. The very same needle that once saved a newborn from freezing was now being used to stitch meaning onto the body. Identity, belonging, love made visible and permanent in 10,000 hours of tiny, aching, patient work, and these were children. Whoever they were, whatever they had or had not yet done in their short lives, a whole community poured years of its most skilled labor into the clothes they would wear into the earth. That is not the mark of people scraping by at the ragged edge of survival, too desperate to feel. That is the mark of people who loved their children the way we love ours, and who reached for beauty precisely when they were most broken by loss. So think one last time about what the needle really was: a sliver of bird bone with a hole worn through it, the one small thing that let a fragile tropical ape walk into the ice and live. Without it, there is no Siberia for us. No Ice Age Europe, no frozen crossings into whole new worlds waiting on the far side of the cold. And here is perhaps the strangest part of all: we can date when we first started wearing clothes, and we date it from the most unlikely evidence imaginable: lice. The lice that live in human clothing are a different kind from the lice that live in human hair, and at some point in the deep past, one split off from the other. By reading the DNA of those clothing lice and measuring how long ago they diverged, scientists can date when human beings first had clothes for those lice to move into and live in. The answer comes back at somewhere around 170,000 years ago, long, long before the sewing needle was ever invented. We wrapped ourselves in loose hides for 100,000 years before we ever learned to sew them tight. Think of the patience of that. 100,000 years of simply holding a hide around your shoulders before someone finally worked out how to cut it, shape it, and stitch it to the body. Progress in the deep past did not move in leaps. It crept across unimaginable spans of time, one small idea at a time, but sewing changed what clothing could be and what it could mean. A fitted sealed seam meant a garment that truly held heat, that let us go where no bare animal could follow. And that same fitted surface was something you could cover and ornament. Warmth and beauty carried on the very same thread, drawn through the very same tiny eye. And that is the deepest and truest thing in this whole frozen story. To be human is not only to want to stay warm. Any animal on earth wants that much. Every creature seeks shelter, seeks heat, seeks to go on living. That is nothing special. What no animal wants is the other thing. We took the humble tool that kept us from freezing to death, and we made it carry who we are. We took survival and we decorated it. We turned the very thing that kept us alive into a thing that said to anyone who looked, "This is me. I belong to these people. I was here and I mattered." And so the first coat was never only a coat. It was the beginning of everything we wear to say who we are: every uniform, every gift, every garment sewn with more care than mere warmth could ever require. To be human is not just to stay warm. It is to want, with your whole aching heart, to be seen.